The morning had started like any other. The sky was painted a soft gold over Denver's suburbs, and Michael Reed was running late, again. He rushed down the stairs, coffee in one hand, tie half done, briefcase swinging. Grace was in the kitchen, humming softly as she packed Ethan's lunch for school. "Mike, you're going to miss the meeting if you don't hurry," she teased, smiling at him the way she always did when life still made sense. I know," he grinned, kissing her cheek. "One day I'll figure out how to be on time." It was ordinary. Beautifully ordinary. Until the phone call came. That call, just before noon, shattered everything. A car accident. A semi-truck on the highway. Grace and Ethan were gone before help could arrive. Michael remembered the voice on the other end trembling. He remembered dropping his phone, his knees hitting the floor. The sound he made, that raw, animal cry, didn't even sound human. It was the sound of a man watching his entire world crumble in a single moment. Days blurred into nights. The funeral was a haze of faces and flowers. Words like, "they're in a better place," meant nothing. He didn't want them in a better place. He wanted them home. After the burial, the house felt like a tomb. Ethan's shoes still by the door. Grace's perfume still lingering in the hallway. Every step Michael took echoed loneliness. Bills piled up. Work stopped mattering. He stopped showing up. The construction firm he'd built from scratch slowly slipped away. Clients left. Workers quit. And Michael? He stopped fighting. Weeks turned into months. He stopped eating properly. Stopped shaving. His friends tried calling, he didn't answer. The world had moved on, but Michael Reed stayed buried under the rubble of what once was. And then, one freezing November night, sitting in that dark living room with nothing but silence for company, Michael whispered to himself. "I don't want to live like this anymore." For the first time since the accident, he stood up. Not because he wanted to live, but because something deep inside refused to die. Winter came early that year. Denver's streets were cloaked in snow, and Michael wandered through them aimlessly, coat torn, hands trembling. His savings were gone. His house was sold to pay off debt. He now lived in a cheap motel on the outskirts, the kind where dreams went to die. Every morning he stared into the cracked bathroom mirror, asking himself who that man was. He had once been the guy who built houses, raised a family, made people proud. Now he was just surviving. On the worst nights, he found himself outside the liquor store at midnight. Whiskey became his only company. It dulled the ache, but never enough. The bottle was both poison and friend. One night, as he stumbled out of the store, a voice stopped him. "Hey man, you okay?" It was Tommy Lawson, his old best friend. The last person Michael wanted to see him like this. "Tommy, what are you doing here?" "Looking for you," Tommy said quietly. "Grace's sister called me. Said you've disappeared. I was worried." Michael looked away. "You shouldn't be." "I'm fine." He wasn't. His eyes said everything his words denied. Tommy sighed, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not fine, Mike. None of us would be. But Grace wouldn't want this." The mention of her name hit like a knife. Michael pushed his hand away. "Don't talk about her," he snapped, voice breaking. "You don't know what it's like to lose everything." Tommy didn't answer. He just looked at him, really looked, and saw the pain no words could reach. Then he said quietly, "You're right. I don't. But I do know what it's like to give up, and it's not who you are." That night, Tommy dragged him out of the motel. Brought him to a small community shelter run by nuns. Michael resisted, cursed, even tried to walk away, but somehow, deep down, he stayed. That's where he met Sister Helen. A woman with silver hair, soft eyes, and a voice like calm after a storm. "You don't have to believe in God to be here," she told him gently. "Just believe that you're not beyond saving." Michael said nothing. But something in her voice, steady, kind, unwavering, made him stay for the night. And for the first time in months, he slept. The shelter was small, tucked between an abandoned warehouse and a church that had seen better days. The air smelled of soup, old wood, and quiet hope. Michael woke up in a bunk bed surrounded by strangers, veterans, addicts, lost souls. He didn't belong there. Or so he thought. Sister Helen handed him coffee that morning. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," she said, her smile calm but firm. "I'm not looking for charity," he muttered. "Good," she said. "Then maybe you'll help instead." And that's how it started. She handed him a broom. A mop. A list of chores. Michael didn't want to do it at first, but there was something oddly grounding about it: cleaning floors, fixing leaky pipes, repairing broken furniture. Hands that once built skyscrapers were now rebuilding something smaller, quieter, purpose. Days turned into weeks. He talked little, worked a lot. The other residents began to nod at him with quiet respect. They didn't ask questions, they all had ghosts of their own. One evening, Sister Helen sat beside him while he was repairing a broken bench outside. "You're good with your hands," she said. "I used to build houses," he replied softly. "Now I'm just patching up scraps." "Sometimes," she said, "patching scraps teaches us more about life than building castles." Her words lingered. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He thought about Ethan's laugh, Grace's eyes. He cried quietly, not the violent sobs from before, but slow, silent tears. The kind that wash something away. And in that stillness, for the first time in a long time, he whispered, "If there's still a reason for me to be here, show me." Weeks passed. Michael stayed at the shelter, fixing things, helping with repairs. The nuns began to rely on him. Word spread, the man who can fix anything. One morning, a woman named Rachel Cooper arrived. She was helping deliver donated medical supplies. A nurse, mid-30s, tired eyes, but a smile that hid strength. Her son was sick, she mentioned in passing, and she was working 2 jobs to keep up. Michael found himself drawn to her, not romantically, not yet. But something about her quiet endurance mirrored his own pain. As they worked together unloading supplies, she asked, "So, what brings you here?" He paused. "I lost my family." She nodded. "I lost my husband. Cancer. 2 years ago." Silence stretched between them, heavy, but shared. That day, they repaired a broken fence together. When they finished, Rachel looked at him and said, "You're good at fixing things." He smiled faintly. "Not everything." But her words lingered, just like Sister Helen's had. Over the next few days, he started helping not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He began teaching other men at the shelter how to build small things: shelves, tables, birdhouses. For the first time in years, he felt useful. And one evening, as the sun set behind the church, he realized, he hadn't thought about the bottle in weeks. He'd been sober without even trying. That night, sitting by the window, he felt something stir in his chest. Not joy. Not peace. But something close: hope. One afternoon, as Michael was organizing tools in the shelter's workshop, Sister Helen approached with a small envelope. "This arrived for you," she said. "From the lawyer handling Grace's estate." Michael froze. His stomach tightened. He hadn't seen or opened anything connected to Grace or Ethan since the accident. The envelope felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of the past itself. He sat alone in the chapel, the light dim and golden through the stained glass. His fingers trembled as he opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, dated 3 days before the accident. It was from Grace. "Mike. If you're reading this, it means something happened. Please don't blame yourself. I need you to remember that you were the best husband and father anyone could have asked for. Whatever happens, promise me you'll keep living, for Ethan. For you. You've always been the one who builds homes, dreams, people. Don't stop building, even when life breaks everything down. I love you, always. Grace." He couldn't breathe. Tears streamed silently down his face as he clutched the paper to his chest. Her words cut through every layer of numbness he'd built. In that moment, something inside him shifted, like a small light flickering in a long dark tunnel. He whispered, voice shaking. "I broke that promise, Grace. But I'll make it right. Somehow. For the first time, he didn't cry from despair, he cried because he finally felt alive again. The morning after reading Grace's letter, Michael woke up before dawn. The world outside was still dark, but inside him something had shifted. He sat on the edge of the small cot in the shelter, the letter still folded neatly in his pocket. For the first time in 2 years, he had a reason to get up, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He walked outside. The cold bit at his face, but he didn't mind. The city was quiet, only the soft hum of distant traffic echoing through the streets. He looked toward the sunrise, and whispered. "All right, Grace. I'll start building again." He didn't know what that meant yet, but he felt ready to try. Over breakfast, Sister Helen noticed something in his eyes. "You look lighter today," she said. "I made a promise," he replied quietly. "One I should have kept a long time ago." That day, Michael began sketching again, old habits returning. He drew plans for simple wooden benches, small storage units, even new beds for the shelter. When Sister Helen saw them, her eyes widened. "These are beautiful," she said. "If we had the wood, we could use every single one." "We'll find it," Michael said with a small smile. Over the following weeks, he reached out to old construction contacts, asking for scrap materials, leftover wood, nails, paint, anything. Most didn't even recognize his voice at first. But 1 or 2 remembered him. They helped. Before long, the shelter's courtyard turned into a workshop. Men who had once given up on themselves began helping, sanding, hammering, building. Michael taught them how to measure, how to align beams, how to build something that lasts. The shelter slowly transformed. And in the process, so did Michael. By spring, the once-forgotten shelter was almost unrecognizable. Where there had been broken walls and empty rooms, there were now sturdy beds, tables, and fresh paint. The people who came there found more than food and a roof, they found dignity. One afternoon, Sister Helen stood in the doorway, watching the men work. Michael was in the middle, guiding them, patient and kind. "You've turned this place into something special," she said. Michael wiped sweat from his brow. "They did most of it," he said. "You gave them a reason to believe they could." Her words caught him off guard. He looked at the group, men who had once been silent, hopeless, now laughing, arguing about measurements, working together. It reminded him of the way he used to feel on job sites with his old crew. But this time, it wasn't about money or deadlines. It was about healing. That evening, Rachel stopped by again, bringing food donations. Her son, Daniel, a quiet boy of 12, followed behind her. Daniel was thin, pale, shy. He barely spoke, but he watched everything with curious eyes. Michael crouched down beside him. "You like building things?" Daniel nodded. "My dad used to. He had a workshop." Michael smiled. "Then you'll fit right in." Daniel spent the afternoon helping him sand down a table. It was the first time Michael had laughed, really laughed, in years. Later that night, Rachel thanked him. "You're good with him. He doesn't open up to many people." "Neither do I," Michael said softly. There was a pause. The air between them felt warm, fragile, full of unspoken things. They didn't need to say much, both understood what it meant to lose, and what it meant to slowly find life again. One afternoon, while Michael was helping move lumber into the courtyard, a black car pulled up. A man stepped out, sharp suit, clean shoes, briefcase in hand. "Mr. Reed," he called out. Michael turned. "Yeah? I'm from Halden Construction. We're reviewing community projects across Denver. Heard about what you've been doing here. Mind if I take a look?" It was surreal. The name Halden Construction used to be his biggest competitor. Now they were asking him for advice. The man toured the shelter, impressed by the craftsmanship, the organization, and the people's morale. "This is incredible," he said. "We're looking for local partners for a neighborhood rebuilding project downtown. We'd like you to be part of it." Michael froze. "I'm not a contractor anymore." "Doesn't matter. You've built something more real than most companies ever do." That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat outside under the stars, staring at his hands, calloused, rough, scarred. The same hands that had once held Grace's face, carried Ethan on his shoulders, and destroyed bottles in anger. Now, they were creating again. He looked up and whispered. "Is this what you meant, Grace? To keep building?" The next morning, he said yes to the offer. But only under one condition: the shelter's men would be hired as part of the crew. Sister Helen smiled when she heard. "You're not just rebuilding houses anymore," she said. "You're rebuilding lives." The downtown project was massive, an old neighborhood destroyed by years of neglect and poverty. Michael's team, a mix of volunteers, former addicts, and drifters, arrived at the site looking uncertain. Most construction managers laughed at the idea of working with homeless men. But Michael didn't. He looked at them and saw potential. "We're not here to prove anything to them," he told the group on the first day. "We're here to prove something to ourselves." The first few weeks were tough. Mistakes, long hours, harsh words from others. But slowly, the crew found rhythm. Every wall they built, every roof they repaired, became more than construction, it was redemption in motion. Rachel visited often with her son, bringing lunch, offering smiles. Daniel loved helping, learning to hammer nails, measure boards, paint walls. One afternoon, he handed Michael a small wooden cross he'd carved himself. "For you," Daniel said shyly. "Mom says you helped us when you didn't have to." Michael looked at the cross for a long moment, voice trembling. "Thank you, kid. You don't know how much that means." But deep down, he did know. Because that simple piece of wood reminded him that every scar could still become something sacred. Months later, when the first row of homes was completed, the entire crew stood together watching families move in. There were tears, laughter, applause. Sister Helen came to see it and whispered. Grace would be proud. Michael smiled faintly, the sun warm on his face. "I hope so," he said. "For the first time. I think I am too." The project's success caught the attention of local media. Interviews followed. Newspapers called it the man who rebuilt hope. But Michael didn't care about fame. For him, it was about something simpler: peace. One evening, he visited Grace and Ethan's grave for the first time in years. The air was still, the grass freshly cut. He knelt down, placing Daniel's small wooden cross beside their names. "Grace," he whispered, "I kept my promise. I kept building." Tears came, but they weren't heavy anymore. They were soft, cleansing. He smiled faintly. "I think I finally understand what you meant. You didn't want me to live for you, you wanted me to live fully." As he stood, a breeze rustled through the trees, gentle, warm, like a whisper. He looked up at the sky and closed his eyes. Life had taken everything from him, but it had also given something back: clarity. He realized that happiness wasn't about having what he lost, it was about giving what he still had. And as the sunset painted the sky orange and gold, Michael walked away from the graveyard not as a broken man, but as a man reborn. The air felt heavier as Michael drove through the winding roads leading to Boulder, Colorado, the town he had sworn never to see again. The same mountains stood tall in the distance, indifferent to human sorrow, their silent peaks cutting through the gray autumn sky. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white, his heart thundering in his chest. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 long years since that night stole everything from him. As he entered the town, every street corner carried a memory. The coffee shop where Emma used to meet her friends. The park where little Liam learned to ride his bike. The hospital that couldn't save them. Each sight pierced him like a blade, but this time, he didn't turn away. He forced himself to keep driving, to keep breathing, to face it all. When he reached the cemetery, the world grew quiet. The leaves rustled softly, whispering secrets of the past. He walked slowly to the graves, their names engraved in stone, forever frozen in time. His hands trembled as he touched the cold marble. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice cracking. "For running away, for not being the man you believed I was." Tears streamed down his face, but for the first time, he didn't hide them. He spoke to them for hours, about Sister Mary, about Grace, about the homeless shelter, about learning to live again. It wasn't confession. It was conversation. A way of saying, "I'm still here, and I'm trying." When he finally stood, his heart was lighter. The pain didn't disappear, it transformed. It became something quieter, something bearable. As he walked away, he glanced at the horizon and whispered, "Thank you, for loving me enough to give me the strength to start over." He left Boulder that evening with tears in his eyes, but a purpose in his soul. Weeks later, back at the shelter, Michael found a small envelope waiting for him. The handwriting was elegant, feminine. Grace. He hesitated before opening it. Her words were gentle, filled with gratitude. She thanked him for helping her see that loss didn't mean life was over, that healing was possible, even for those who thought they were beyond saving. But near the end, her tone shifted. She wrote, "I've been offered a position in Oregon, helping veterans with trauma recovery. I think it's time for both of us to continue our journeys, wherever they may lead. Don't stop helping people, Michael. You have a gift. You turn pain into something beautiful." Michael sat for a long time, the letter trembling in his hands. He felt both sadness and pride. Grace had been a mirror, reflecting his strength back at him. And now, she was following her own light. That night, he walked outside, the city quiet beneath the stars. He thought of all the people who had walked through the shelter's doors, broken, lost, afraid. Just like him once. And suddenly, he knew. His mission wasn't over. It was only beginning. He wrote in his notebook, the same one Sister Mary had given him. "Maybe life doesn't take from us to punish us. Maybe it takes so we can learn how to give." The next morning, he went to Sister Mary and told her he wanted to start a new program, workshops for men dealing with grief, addiction, and loss. She smiled knowingly, her wrinkled hand resting on his shoulder. "Then let's build it," she said softly. Together. The first meeting was awkward. 5 men sat in a circle in the church basement, their faces shadowed by shame. Ex-soldiers, addicts, widowers, each carrying a storm behind their eyes. Michael looked at them and saw himself years ago, lost, angry, pretending to be fine. He didn't lecture them. He just told his story. Slowly, honestly. He told them about the crash, the darkness, the drinking, the night he almost didn't make it. About Sister Mary, about Grace, about learning that pain can be a teacher. When he finished, the room was silent. Then one man, a construction worker named Dean, started to speak. His voice trembled. "My wife died last year. I thought I was the only one who still wakes up screaming." Another man nodded. Then another. Soon, the silence broke into voices, raw, trembling, real. They weren't talking to a counselor. They were talking to someone who understood. That night, when everyone left, Michael stayed behind. He sat in the empty circle of chairs, feeling something deep within him shift. For the first time, he felt peace, not the fragile kind that breaks when you're alone, but the kind that comes from purpose. By the end of the month, more men joined. The group became a lifeline. Word spread. The shelter expanded. And with each meeting, Michael's heart grew stronger, not because he stopped missing his family, but because their love now lived through the lives he helped heal. One winter evening, a blizzard hit the city. Power went out. Roads were closed. Michael and a few volunteers stayed overnight at the shelter, tending to those who had nowhere else to go. Amid the storm, an old man was brought in, frostbitten, barely conscious. As they warmed him by the fire, Michael recognized him. It was Tommy, one of the men he had fired from his company years ago, a decision that had spiraled the man into homelessness. The realization hit him like a blow. He had once contributed to this man's downfall. But now, fate had brought them face to face again. When Tommy awoke, confusion filled his tired eyes. "Michael Reed," he croaked. You used to be my boss." Michael nodded slowly. "Yeah. I did. And I owe you an apology." Tommy blinked. "Apology? For what?" "For walking away when you needed help," Michael said softly. "For being a man who didn't see beyond numbers and deadlines." Tommy stared at him for a long time. Then, through cracked lips, he whispered, "We all fall, Mike. Some just get the chance to stand up again." Those words would stay with Michael forever. That night, as the storm howled outside, Michael sat near the fire, surrounded by people society had forgotten. And he realized, this was his redemption. Not success, not wealth, not perfection. Just love, in its simplest, rawest form. Helping others rise, because someone once helped him. Spring came slowly, washing the city in light. The garden behind the shelter bloomed with color, tulips, daisies, and wildflowers that volunteers had planted. The men's group had grown to dozens. Some had found jobs. Some had reunited with families. Some still struggled, but they kept showing up. That was what mattered. One morning, Michael received a letter from Grace. She wrote about her work in Oregon, about the veterans who reminded her of him. At the end, she said, "You taught me that broken doesn't mean useless. It means human. I hope you never stop sharing that truth." Michael smiled, folding the letter carefully. Then he walked outside, watching the sunlight fall on the faces of the people gathered in the courtyard. Sister Mary stood nearby, her eyes bright with quiet pride. He looked up at the sky, vast, endless, forgiving, and felt a deep peace settle in his chest. The pain would never vanish completely. But it didn't need to. It had become his compass, guiding him toward compassion, toward purpose, toward life. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself. When life took everything from me, it was only clearing the way for me to find what truly mattered. And for the first time in years, Michael didn't just exist, he lived. Not as the man who lost everything, but as the man who finally understood why he was still here.